Hello and welcome to the Fishing Guide Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Wiegmann. Pretty exciting because we have an Arkansas angler here. So we always love to have our Arkansas anglers, and Travis Harriman is here. He's going to be fishing the Major League Fishing, the Invitationals. And so we're going to find out some more. We're going to find out about how his year went and the reason why he likes going out and mapping things. Well, at least he used to.
Used to. Yep.
There you go. So, Travis, tell us a little bit about yourself. You are a U of A angler.
Yes, sir. Yep. My dad, he actually works at the University of Arkansas. And so growing up, that's where I wanted to go to school. Main factor was it was cheaper because he worked there. But
right.
The second and probably equally as important factor was that there was a bass fishing team there. And that was something I always wanted to do in high school because it was just kind of getting going when I was in high school. And so stayed close to home. I'm from Huntsville, Arkansas, so it's only about 45 minutes to Fayetteville. Went there, took a hot lap, so I graduated in 5 years. So spent 5 years on the fishing team, and some of the connections that I've made in life have came from people and stuff that you like, people you run into at tournaments or just other functions. And so that really, college isn't for everyone, but it has helped me to get where I am at in my life. So I thank a lot of my success to the people that I met in college and stuff like that.
And you had some success, didn't you, in college?
Yeah, I fished in one national championship. We won the Arkansas Collegiate Series tournaments. Me and my buddy Chaz, we were pretty fortunate and did quite well in some of those.
And then you went from what happened after college?
After college, I started working at a corporate job, fished 1 year of the Toyota Series, and realized pretty quickly that the corporate lifestyle just wasn't for me.
Right.
And thankfully, that same year that I fished the Toyota Series was when Navico and Lowrance called about their mapping program. And so I started doing that and fishing tournaments.
Tell me a little bit about that mapping thing, because it's crazy. I remember seeing you on there and doing some stuff with Lowrance, and I was like, there he is. He's like from Huntsville. He's out there driving around a tin boat.
Yeah, and that all started. So they had a program called the College Cup where they would give away 3 graphs each month, a 12-inch, 9-inch, and 7-inch for first, second, and third place in acres mapped.
Right.
So, and just anybody could go out and map the acres. I mean, while you're just fishing along, if you're recording your sonar and then uploading that was just putting everything towards the social map and making a better map for everybody. Well, when I saw the prizes, I hit my buddy up who had a bass tracker with a little 60-horse Mercury 4-stroke on it. And I was like, hey, man, I've got the time and I've got the will to go in and put a bunch of miles on this thing and gather a bunch of data, and we can win these graphs. And so I did that and won a month, and my boss at Navico, he actually hit me up. It was before the last classic at Grand Lake that Edwin Evers won, and they were needing a bunch of people to map that lake for them. And he said, hey, is this something you'd be interested in? If you'll map this many acres, we'll give you an extra graph and I think an extra graph and all expense paid trip to the classic or something like that.
Right.
And so I was like, absolutely. So I told my buddy, I was like, hey, you let me take your boat over here. I'll take 1 graph, you take 1 graph. Let's make this happen. And so I spent, and it's ironic how the similarities between doing that at Grand Lake and then the job that I had at Navico was. But I went over there and I don't remember how many thousand acres I helped them map. But then when they started the program, a little bit after that, they were finding, looking to expand the program and looking for more people to, fill the seats in the boats. And so my boss at that time, Candler, he hit me up. He's like, hey, is this something you'd be interested in? And I said, absolutely. So, and we traveled around. I started in Tennessee. Went from Tennessee, where else? South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, and those were the states that we completed while I was there. There may have been some more. I know we did a little mapping in in Virginia on some of the border lakes that border there,
Right.
North Carolina and stuff like that. But yeah, and it was they changed how they're collecting the data. I mean, it makes sense, but it's unfortunate that time ended. But after that time ended, my my success kind of catapulted, because last year, 2 years ago, I guess now, 2021 is when we all got laid off from that job, and they gave us a severance and all that stuff. So I just took the money and I was like, all right, I'm gonna save this money, fish as much as I can. Gas was cheap at the time, so I was spending 4 to 5 days a week on the water, just fishing Table Rock, Beaver, Bull Shoals, Grand. I mean, wherever there was a tournament coming up, I'd go there and spend that week. And I was fortunate enough to win 2 Beaver Lake Elite Series tournaments here on Beaver Lake,
Right.
and a Anglers in Action up at Table Rock. Got second in another Anglers in Action at Table Rock. So I was like, oh, here we go. Like, well, we don't got to work for a couple more months now. Every win,
Right.
every time you'd win, that'd be a couple more weeks you get to stay without having to get another job. So
There you go.
yeah.
So what did you learn in all that mapping stuff? Did you start learning things? Did you start seeing fish and you started putting it together?
Definitely. I think you would see like the little intricacies of the contour lines and stuff like that. And you would also kind of see some of the other companies that have maps out there, they may have mapped in an incorrect way, and it would kind of show stuff that isn't there. So you would think, oh, I'm going to go over here. There's this kind of jagged spot, and you go over there and it's not so on the map.
Right.
And it would, now I can look at a map and be like, oh, I can tell, like, because this guy mapped this way and recorded that data, that's not there. Or you can look at it and you can see, and you're like, oh, that little, like, that doesn't really pop out, but I bet there's like a bigger ditch there, or
Right.
a creek channel that really didn't get mapped a whole lot. Because if it's not mapped correctly, I mean, if there's a creek channel weaving through a flat,
Right.
and they just make one pass over it and then just get a little dip there or something, that's something that you can look at the map and tell, oh, there's probably something more here. I need to go spend a little more time graphing and find that stuff, as well as just like definitely over on the eastern part, you'd see the schools of the herring and stuff. So
Right. Blueback herring.
right, blueback herring. So it helped learn kind of a little bit of their habits and stuff like that
Right.
by spending that much time on the water, because we mapped Hartwell, Clarks Hill, Lanier, those type places that have
Right.
a very abundant presence of the blueback herring. So
Wow.
yeah.
So now you had a pretty good year last year,
Yep.
Major League Fishing.
Yep.
So, and you actually had 4 top 10s, I believe, last year.
Yep.
And so 5 overall in your career. That includes your collegiate career.
Yeah.
So so you were right up in there. Joe Bass, you showed up there and took some money from some guys from Missouri. Good job. So are you going to fish? You're going to fish. What are you fishing this year then?
I'll be fishing the Tackle Warehouse Invitationals, and then the Toyota Series, the Plains division of that, just because the championships at Table Rock, and so
Oh, really?
yeah, that's where.
For the Plains division.
Well, for the championship for everyone, that's
Oh,
where
really?
it's going to be at. So really looking forward to that. Got to be top 25 to qualify, so
Right.
got to have a good year to that. But at the championship, they give away $200,000, and that's on a lake that's really close to here, and I've got a lot of knowledge on, so I'd like to throw my name in the hat.
That's right, because that's just one lake down. Because there's Beaver's sitting like right there. He can cast from here. He probably would be if it wouldn't have been 20 degrees out this morning. But so that's pretty close. So,
And one of my top 10s at Lake of the Ozarks, I definitely credit my time at CMAP to helping me with that tournament, because the year prior, Michael Harlan, he won it. And he spilled the juice. He said, hey, it's going to go down from the toll bridge to the dam, throwing an Alabama rig and brush piles. And so me and a buddy, we were like, hey, let's go fish this. Like, let's pay our money to go fish this. Let's spend our time this winter. And so weekends like this right here, when, the roads are clear, but it's freezing cold outside, we would haul our tails up to Lake of the Ozarks and go spend a weekend just idling around. And we'd make it a competition. All right, how many casts did you make today? Oh, I made 10 casts. Like, oh, I got you beat. I only made 5 casts today.
Right.
And we would spend, sun up to sundown just idling and graphing. And a lot of the brush piles I fished in that tournament, I'd never made a cast in until the tournament. So,
yeah. So you were fishing, actually, your technique was throwing the Alabama rig past the brush pile, bringing it to the brush pile.
Exactly.
And a couple times, if they didn't go, you went to the next brush pile.
Exactly, yeah. A game of numbers. Whoever hits the most brush piles, whoever hits the most good brush piles,
right,
is the guy who wins in the end typically. So, yeah, we spent, I don't know how many different waypoints I had, and the Lowrance HDS Alive, it played a big key because I could go over a brush pile, and if you kind of get dialed into, okay, they're on kind of the sides of points or
right,
the certain depth range. And so when I would see a certain depth range, I would change the green tree icon to a red tree icon, telling me, all right, when you see this red one, stop here. This is a stop sign. Stop on this one. And then if I caught a big one, I would change it to a blue icon. So the second and third day of the tournament, I was just running as many of those blue icons that I could, like, all right, there's big ones that live here. We need to stay in these kind of places and keep our bait in productive areas.
Well, give us 3 tips for reading maps then.
Okay. I would say just the more hours you can spend behind your console, the better. Because that's one thing. Well, how do you get good at this? It's like I can give you the roadmap to it, but until you like go out and see it with your own eyes and combine that with your side imaging, your down imaging, and everything.
Right.
Seeing, when you go over that, how it looks on the contour to then how it looks on the side imaging and the down imaging. Time on the water is just, and in everything, I think time on the water is the biggest key for fishing. That would probably be my biggest tip for the maps. And don't be afraid to, like, if it looks a little weird or looks a little off to you, don't be afraid to run over there and idle it. And because it could be something that wasn't mapped correctly or something. And there is a lot juicier stuff happening down there than the map shows.
So you think there's juice in every place?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Every lake's got
every lake is, yeah.
spots.
And every year I'm finding, and there's no telling how many hours I've spent here on Beaver Lake. And every year you're finding more and more spots. You go over, man, I never knew this was here. I used to fish this bank right here, and I didn't think about looking out farther on this point or something like that. I mean, because growing up, my dad and I, we, notorious shallow fishermen. This is the river arm of the lake here, and we were constantly running by Brad's house.
Right.
And that's how I grew up fishing. But then with the invention of forward-facing sonar and the ability to show you what is out there off that point or suspended on top of this hump or next to this bridge piling on top of a brush pile, whatever.
How many units do you run in your boat?
I've got 3. I have a 16 at the console. I really like it just because I spend a bunch of time idling around, and I like to be able to.
Is that HDS Live?
Yeah, HDS Live 16. Like I said, that way you can maximize your side scan and your down scan, and that way if there is a little dot out there that's a fish, you're not going to miss it.
Right.
With a bigger unit like that, in my opinion. And then I've got a HDS Live 12, just dedicated for active target. That's the only screen that thing runs. And then an HDS 9 that's just for mapping on the front.
Just for mapping.
Yep.
So when you're looking at your 2 that are up front, one just says mapping.
One's
9
mapping,
inch, and the other one's just
and waypoints. I mean,
waypoints.
Yep. Pulling up on waypoints, dropping the trolling motor in, and putting the spotlight down there and shining down, seeing if there's anything home in the brush pile.
Key to having one brand of electronics in your boat instead of having 5 different brands. I guess there's only 4, but 3 players in the bass market.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm 100% for having all the same unit, because then if you do have an issue, like I had an issue at one of the BFLs this year, where my 12-inch, like the connection on it down in the hull of the boat worked loose, and that's just something over the course of time, you're going to have equipment failures. But instead of being without forward-facing sonar and it being such a key up at Table Rock, I was able to just put that forward-facing sonar on my 9-inch unit and still get by. Like, no, it's not optimal, but it saved me from just completely blind fishing. I'm still able to use my 9-inch that has the active target, and that way you're not. I mean, like, there's going to be times when equipment does fail. That's part of owning a boat, traveling hundreds of thousands of miles, putting it through the ringer, beating it around on waves and everything else. So yeah, I'm a huge fan, and that's why I've got all HDS live units on my boat, is so that I have that continuity, and they all Ethernet together, talk to one another. So if my 9 goes down, I've got all my waypoints on my 12 at the front. I can split the screen for active target and the map with my waypoints, and so I'm not down and out, you know.
So you're going to fish all the way from Florida all the way up to Mississippi, Mississippi River up there at La Crosse, I believe.
Wisconsin.
Yeah, which is an
and
awesome
as far
place.
East is Maryland.
Yeah, Maryland. That's right. Yeah, you guys are really going.
Yep. And I think farthest west would probably be Oklahoma for the.
Is that Eufaula? Yeah. So, what's some different reservoirs? Have you fished any of those before?
I've fished. So out of the 6 stops, I've fished Eufaula and Lake of the Ozarks.
How long are you gonna?
Well, and Clark's Hill. So Clark's Hill is one of the places that we mapped on. So that's one that I'm looking forward to putting the map I created, you know, to work. That's another cool part about creating all those maps, is like coming back. I fished a tournament at Hartwell just a couple months ago, the Bassmaster Team Championship, and just being able to come back to it. And I told my buddy, I'm like, hey, let's go over here. Like, I mapped this spot. Like, this is a kind of a ditch over here. I was like, let's go check this out. And, you know, you go over there and actually catch fish off of it is a kind of a cool feeling.
Well, that is pretty cool. Well, that takes us to Tackle Time. Tackle Time sponsored by PICO Lures. PICO Lures has a complete line of hard and soft baits. They can catch everything from bass, walleye, crappie. You pretty much name it, stripers, any kind of bass, largemouth, smallmouth, you name it, they got it. They got crankbaits. They got little small plastics if you're going crappie fishing or even walleye fishing. So make sure you check out their products at picolures.com. Travis, if they wanted to find out some more, maybe follow you as you travel across the United States here, mostly the eastern United States, where would they go? Where would they find?
Going to be the best place to follow me is on Instagram at Travis Harriman. That's my main platform that I use right now.
All right.
And that'll be the best way to find me. So follow along, because it's going to be a fun ride this year.
It'll be good. You're very successful angler, so he's going to be cashing some checks. So we're excited about that, and excited to have someone from Arkansas close by.
Yep, representing the 479.
There we go. Exactly. Well, I appreciate, like I always like to say, make sure you keep your hook sharp and your lures in the water.